What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the brand new Google Pixel 6a. This is, of course, the newest iteration of Google's affordable A-series line. It's the successor to last year's Pixel 5a, and it also takes a lot of design elements and features from the flagship Pixel 6 as well. For $449, it's competing in that mid-range bang-for-your-buck smartphone tier. And while it may have a few compromises, I think this phone still has a lot to offer. So I'm going to fill you in on everything you need to know about the new Pixel 6a. We'll talk about what's new, if you should upgrade. Before we get into all that though, let's just quickly unbox this thing so we can see what all comes inside the package when you buy one. And as always, I want to give a big shout out and special thanks to the folks over at Team Pixel for sending this device out a couple of days early. Now, peeling back the stickers and sliding off the lid, the first thing we see is the shiny new Pixel 6a itself. This is the sage green colorway, which I'm a big fan of. It's also available in charcoal and chalk. Underneath that, included in the box, is a USB-A to USB-C quick switch adapter for transferring all your stuff from your old phone to your new one, and a standard USB-C cable for charging. Unfortunately, no power adapter or any other accessories. There is, though, one more small little packet with the Pixel 6a and Google Tensor logo stamped on the outside. It houses the SIM ejector tool there, as well as the couple instruction booklets for helping in setting up your new phone. With all that stuff out of the way, here is the new Pixel 6a once again. And like I mentioned, fans of the Pixel phones will notice that Google did bring a lot of the unique design elements from last year's flagship Pixel 6 to this new 6a. Size-wise, the 6a is now a 6.1-inch device. That's the screen size corner to corner, and that's actually nearly a quarter of an inch smaller than the 5a, and a third of an inch smaller than the flagship Pixel 6. Across the front, there's a center hole punch selfie camera, fairly noticeable side bezels, and a slightly larger bottom chin, which altogether yield about an 83% screen-to-body ratio. And in the hand, I have to say, this is what I would consider to be a fairly small and compact device by today's standards. Most Android devices, I feel, are 6.5 inches and above, and it's actually been a couple of years since we've had a Pixel device this small, not since the 4a and the Pixel 5, I believe. So this is great. If you wanted an easy-to-handle Android phone that's comfortable, this is it right here. Around back, this 6a absolutely looks like the flagship Pixel 6, with a glossy rear back housing, pastel color, and black camera bar running across from edge to edge. A polarizing design, to say the least, but everyone knows this is a Pixel. Now, even though this fit and finish looks super nice, I should note that we're back to plastic here with the rear cover, not glass, but the edges and frame of the phone are still aluminum. And it's hard to tell on camera, but this is actually a sparkly speckled olive green, not quite black, and the top edge of the rear cover is a slightly lighter mint green compared to the rest of the phone. All in all, I really like the design. I'm a big fan of the color and finish as well. It's a unique looking phone to say the least. A couple other important things to mention: still no wireless charging offered here, and the water and dust certification is an IP67 rating, the same as the Pixel 5a, but lower than the IP68 rated flagship Pixel 6. And taking a quick look around at everything else, on the left side you have just a SIM card tray, no SD card or expandable storage offered on this device. On the right side, familiar volume and power buttons. Down at the bottom, the USB-C port for charging, speaker and microphone cutouts on either side, but you'll probably also notice no more headphone jack. Google removed that for this device. Up top, there is a secondary speaker for dual stereo sound just above the selfie camera, and around back, of course, a dual lens camera setup, which I'll talk about in just a bit. Underneath the screen, the 6a is fitted with an in-display fingerprint sensor now, and just like with the flagship Pixel 6 last year, this sensor is a little slow and inaccurate at times. I calculate it takes upwards of 2 full seconds to wake, scan, and unlock, and I've already found myself fighting it a few times. I was hoping to see some improvements with this, but it doesn't look to be the case. As far as the display, the 6.1-inch screen on the 6a is a full HD 2400 by 1080 resolution OLED panel with HDR support, and packs in around 429 pixels per inch. The slightly smaller size means you get a slightly better PPI versus last year, but most everything else, spec-wise, appears to be the same. And that includes the absence of 90 or 120Hz high refresh rate. Now, the general viewing experience with this phone is great. Like I said, plenty sharp, especially for this smaller size, so no worries there. The OLED panel is certainly colorful, very bold. It doesn't seem to get as bright as, say, Samsung's A series, for example. I think that's its only weak spot, but it's still a great looking display for all your favorite content. The real kicker is just the fact that there are plenty of other $400 to $500 phones now that give you the display trifecta, the whole package. Full HD, OLED, or even AMOLED, and 90 or 120 Hz. So comparatively, I think this is where the 6A sees the biggest compromise versus the competition, but like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with the display itself. Everything looks great to me, and I'd be more than happy to watch YouTube videos, movies, or anything else with this setup. The real icing on the cake, though, is the out loud listening experience. The dual speaker setup on this phone, with the one at the bottom and secondary speaker up top, is fantastic. Very loud, incredibly crisp. This is a feature I personally value quite a lot, and here's a sound sample so you can get an idea. Powering this new Pixel 6a is, of course, Google's own Tensor chipset. This is their in-house flagship processor that was heavily touted last year in the 6 and 6 Pro phones and is now available in this one. It's paired with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, which is the only configuration option. And of course, like all Pixel phones, you not only get Google's best features and software experience, but multiple years of guaranteed Android updates and security patches before any other device. Android 13 is right around the corner, of course, and this phone should be first in line. It's this software experience that I think draws most people to the Pixel phones. It's what I like best, that fast, fluid, and well-optimized setup sprinkled with Google's own custom experience. And it seems to me that Google's Tensor program wound up being fairly successful. The flagship Pixel 6s were very powerful and capable devices, and now with the 6a, you get the same experience for a discounted price. Between the software setup and processing power, this is really where a lot of the value comes in with Google's A series, this phone included, and I'm excited to use this device in the coming weeks to see just how much it can handle. Also, one thing Google has been big on with this phone is battery life. The 6a gets a 4410 milliamp battery, which is a tiny bit smaller versus last year, though the phone itself is smaller, so that makes sense. And paired with the 60 Hz display, Tensor chip, and Google's own adaptive battery tools, Google says to expect at least a day's use out of this thing on a single charge, and then some, which I will absolutely be putting to the test. When you do need to plug it in, like I said, no wireless charging, and unfortunately no power brick included in the box, just the cable. The phone itself supports 18-watt wired charging, but obviously you'll have to buy that supported power brick yourself. Finally, when it comes to the camera, rather than simply bringing over the hardware from the flagship phones, Google went ahead and just kept the same Sony setup and sensors that they've been using since like the Pixel 2. So we once again have that 12.2 megapixel f1.7 aperture main lens, paired with what actually seems to be the same 12 megapixel 114 degree ultra wide from the flagships, but the same 8 megapixel selfie camera as well, which we've also had time and time again. But honestly, reusing the same camera hardware isn't the worst thing in the world because it was and still is so good. And paired with Google's Tensor chip and their ridiculous image processing via the software, this phone once again is a top tier picture taker. Inside the camera app, you'll find all the essentials and then some, including multiple video stabilization options, up to 4K 60 FPS recording, basic manual controls, plenty of Google specific tweaks and add-ons. It's no flagship phone with its over-the-top shooting modes and features, but it'll still get the job done to say the least. These couple of sample shots here right out of the box really look good. They're colorful without being over the top, very well balanced, and like Google always does, there's just so much detail in each one of these shots. It's really hard to tell here, but you aren't going to find any sharper looking image on any other phone in this price range. Even though the 6a isn't technically a flagship phone or a flagship camera setup, for your average everyday shots, this thing is going to outshoot 95% of the smartphones out there, and everything in its price range. Once again, if pictures are your thing, there's probably no other phone than the Pixel. So for as fun and as As funky and as different as the new Pixel 6a looks versus last year's Pixel 5a, a lot of things do remain the same. The fresh design and smaller form factor give you hints of a higher-end phone with the comfort of a small device that's hard to come by these days. The Tensor chip is absolutely a step up, probably the biggest upgrade and top reason to buy if performance is your thing. The camera setup, while unchanged, is still top of the line as well for this price range and beyond. Its biggest shortcoming really is the display when you start to compare what's out there versus the competition, but for $450, I think this phone gives you a lot and all the best Google has to offer for sure. It's once again one of the best bang for your buck Android devices you can get. But what do you guys think of the new Google Pixel 6a? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.